All right, let's jump right into this explainer and reverse engineer what is honestly probably the most successful management blueprint in modern sports history. We're going to take the exact principles that built an absolute sporting empire and translate them directly into actionable lessons for your own organization.
38. I mean, just think about that number for a second. That is the staggering amount of trophies Sir Alex Ferguson racked up during his 26 seasons managing Manchester United. And yeah, that includes 13 English league titles. It's a haul that's literally nearly double that of the next most successful English club manager. Insane, right?
So, the million-dollar question we're exploring today is, how exactly do you achieve sustained elite performance in an industry that is so incredibly volatile and results-driven? I mean, in football, losing just 3 games can get a manager fired. Yet Ferguson didn't just survive. He built an absolute dynasty, lasting 3 decades. How? To answer that, we're going to break down Ferguson's strategies into 4 key pillars: building a lasting foundation, setting and enforcing standards, the art of management, and finally, evolving to win. So, starting with pillar number 1, building a lasting foundation. Let's look at how Ferguson approached the bedrock of his organization when he first arrived in 1986. There's this huge contrast between how most managers think and how Ferguson operated. See, the very first thought of 99% of new managers is just pure short-term survival. They try to build a team by buying experienced veterans just to win the next match. But Ferguson, he had a completely different, super visionary goal. He wanted to build a club right from the bottom up. He knew winning a single game was a short-term fix, but building a club, that brought true stability and consistency. To pull this off, he completely overhauled and modernized the youth program. He set up these centers of excellence and placed massive bets on incredibly young talent. Guys like Ryan Giggs, who we noticed when he was just a skinny 13-year-old kid. And Giggs eventually became the most decorated British footballer of all time, playing for the first team until he was nearly 40 years old. Ferguson kind of managed this talent pipeline like a high-level portfolio manager. To maintain his foundation over what he considered a 4-year success cycle, he balanced his roster perfectly across 3 very distinct age brackets. You had the under-25s, right? They're developing their skills. Then the 23 to 30-year-olds who are setting the performance standards. And finally, a select group of over 30 veterans kept around to provide continuity and carry that core club culture forward. And the thing is, investing in youth doesn't just build a pipeline. It creates this fierce, intense loyalty. I mean, think about the junior members of your own team. Former player Gary Neville later said of youth coach Eric Harrison that they owed him everything, literally calling him the man who made us. Giving young people a chance, fighting for them, it builds an unbreakable family-like bond. They're going to buy into your methods because they know, without a doubt, that you're in their corner. Okay, moving to pillar 2. Setting and enforcing standards. Because once that foundation is laid, you have got to maintain the culture. Ferguson demanded an intense, contagious work ethic. He actively recruited what he called bad losers just to ensure the team had this relentless, resilient mentality. He absolutely refused to allow a bad training session, believing that whatever happens in practice is exactly what manifests on the field. And here's the kicker. He expected his superstars to work the absolute hardest. Honestly, he literally used to bang on the window to chase adult millionaire superstars like Cristiano Ronaldo inside because they were doing way too much extra practice. See, when you're dealing with 30 millionaire professionals, the absolute golden rule for Ferguson was that the manager must be the most important person in the club. You never, ever cede control. The second the players start dictating how training goes or what tactics are used, the whole culture just crumbles. The manager's personality literally has to be bigger than the players. And he wasn't kidding around. Before he even came to United, he told himself he wasn't going to allow anyone to be stronger than he was. When standards were compromised, he acted swiftly. No agonizing, no second-guessing. He famously terminated the contract of legendary captain Roy Keane after Keane publicly criticized his teammates. He even sold his top scorer, Ruud van Nistelrooy, to Real Madrid the exact moment he became a negative influence in the dressing room. Locker room or boardroom, it doesn't matter. The long-term view of the organization always trumps any single individual. Now for pillar 3, the art of management, because discipline is really just one side of the coin. We often picture Ferguson as this purely tough guy, screaming in the locker room, but the truth is he was incredibly empathetic. He totally tailored his message to the moment. He understood that most people respond so much better to encouragement than to constant criticism. In fact, he considered "well done" to be the 2 best words ever invented. And when reprimands were actually needed, They were delivered swiftly, right after the game, in private, and then it was over. Handled, done. He never held a grudge. He also systematically prepared his team to win late in the game. It wasn't just luck, it was pure habit. He took the panic out of high-pressure situations by practicing them over and over. He used this escalating risk strategy. Step 1, if they were down at halftime, the message was, don't panic, concentrate on the task. Step 2, if they were tied or down with 15 minutes left, they took risks, like swapping a defender for an attacker. Step 3, go for broke in the dying seconds. His team knew exactly how to execute a total bombardment when the pressure was highest. So ask yourself, does your team have a practiced protocol for when deadlines go completely off the rails? To manage all these crazy moving parts, Ferguson knew he couldn't just play the disciplinarian. He had to fluidly shift roles depending on what his staff and players needed in that exact moment. Sometimes he had to be the doctor, healing team morale after a tough setback. Other times he was the teacher, instilling tactical intelligence. And sometimes he was the father figure, guiding and protecting his young talent through a rough patch. But honestly, his biggest managerial pivot happened when he learned to take a step back. Crucially, he decided to delegate the direct supervision of daily training sessions to his assistants. And this unlocked the immense power of observation. By stepping out of the day-to-day micromanagement bubble, he could suddenly spot the subtle stuff. A tiny dip in a player's enthusiasm, a hidden injury, a slight shift in habits. He saw things everyone else missed, simply because he freed himself up to look. Which brings us to Pillar 4, evolving to win, the absolute necessity of adapting in a rapidly changing world. Over 26 years, football changed drastically, and Ferguson never let himself stagnate. Far from being stuck in his ways, he was all in on sports science to grab literally any competitive edge. I mean, we're talking vitamin D booths in the dressing rooms to combat that gloomy Manchester weather. He championed GPS sensor vests for instant performance analysis right after practice. He brought in an on-staff optometrist and even hired yoga instructors twice a week. This relentless drive culminated in a staggering £20 million renovation of their Carrington training ground. He pushed hard to move the club away from their beloved, historic, but totally outdated former facilities, making absolutely sure they had a private, state-of-the-art medical facility right there on site. He famously told people that this massive infrastructure upgrade was basically like signing a multi-million-pound superstar. It proved that you have to continually reinvest in your foundation to attract and keep top talent. As he said, it gave them a facility where the players are walking in and just going, wow. If your workspace isn't making your team say wow, trust me, someone else's will. Think about your own office or tech stack right now. Are you giving your top performers an environment that actually makes them want to stay? And this is exactly why his impact goes so far beyond just sports. As former chief executive David Gill perfectly put it, Steve Jobs was Apple, Sir Alex Ferguson is Manchester United. Ferguson's blueprint isn't just about football tactics. It is an absolute masterclass in end-to-end organizational leadership, unyielding cultural control, and relentless innovation. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a question to ponder about your own team. If you completely stepped out of your own daily operations tomorrow, if you just delegated the immediate tasks and simply started observing, what unexpected details would reveal themselves? What crucial changes would you realize you need to make today so you can build your own dynasty for tomorrow?